Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of Healing Hearts. I'm your host, Jessica Holland. Who are you feeding? I've always heard the saying, whatever you feed will get stronger. I've heard it in a sense of there being two warriors within us. And whatever warrior gets fed will be the strongest. Within us, there are many parts that make us simply us. The two warriors within us that I'm speaking about is the warrior that resists the change that is good for us, and the warrior that fights for that change. The parts of the ego, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, I shouldn't really say it like that because the ego itself is not bad. This, I think, is misunderstood by a lot of people simply because there is a beautiful integration of light and dark within all of us. Now, the side that you decide to feed is what ultimately shows what type of improvement you are going to bring forth or what kind of fruit we will bear in our lives. And of course, I'm not talking about the times where we're supposed to rest to understand what the next move is, or the times where we have to relax and allow things to come forth to us for us to receive. That's not what I'm talking about, because there are certainly important times for all of those things to happen. I'm talking about the part of us that is yearning for the change, because there's a deep calling within us that knows that we are meant for more, that we are meant for bigger things, that we are meant to be the change than what we have been seeing in generational trauma from family, from friends, because not all of us have family, but it is who we surround ourselves with. Sometimes there's nothing more alienating than realizing that you have outgrown the group of friends that you thought were going to be in your life forever. I've heard many therapists state that every 7 years we end up getting a new group of friends. That's really refreshing, because that just means that you didn't fail the friendship. They didn't fail the friendship. Simply, it was time to let go. There's a time for everything. And that is the beauty of life. The beauty of life that calls us to change. There are times where our ego can keep things and ways of being hidden from us because we are used to being a certain way for so long. It's almost to the point where we think that it is simply part of our personality. Yet, some of those mechanisms, whether they're protective or not, can sometimes keep us from the life that we want. If we have the same situation happen to us over and over, you may want to ask yourself, why did this come to me again? Not in a victim type of way. People do not play the victim. It's not even an instrument. Everything in our life we can use for the better. Simply ask your questions in a reflective type of manner. Things like, what is it in me that this situation is trying to take out of me? Or what is it in me that this situation came to me again? That type of reflection has to come forth after you wake up to a sense of change and you decide that enough is enough. I'm going to stop reacting and I need to respond, because the subconscious is habit and the conscience is logic. That is how it was stated to me. And to me, that made sense and reasons why I was going through the same thing, even though I wanted change in my life. Even when I didn't see it happening, I had to keep a positive outlook within just the situations around me. And that's when I began to say, okay, what role am I playing that keeps bringing me the same situation? Or why did I just attract the same friendship in a different human form? I don't mean to call it like that, but when I seen myself in friendships where it wasn't reciprocating the same amount of, hey, of course I'll help you do this. Of course I'll help you do that. It wasn't being reciprocated. I began to wake up to the fact that, wait, I am truly not being valued in friendships. I was single for a long time, people. This is why I can only relate to friendships at the moment. So when you catch on that you keep attracting the same person in a different body, you start to take note of that. And I remember I asked myself, is it me or is it from my ancestors? You know, I'm a big fan of using the Socrates method to get answers out of oneself, even journaling about questions you ask yourself, because since thoughts happen so rapidly, they come and they go. Sometimes we'll have one thought and next thing you know, a whole minute passed by and you're on a whole different subject and you're like, oh my goodness, why am I thinking of that? How did I even get to that point of that thought? That's why sometimes journaling does help. We can get lost in the thought bubbles per se. While in a reflection or introspection type of mode, make sure that you are nice to yourself too. Because sometimes we can get so caught up in trying to achieve things and trying to better ourselves that growth and self-improvement just becomes another habit. And you begin to lose yourself in trying to better yourself, that it turns into just another numbing mechanism that you are using to hide from something else. My goodness, aren't we complicated individuals? But just know that every answer just rises up at the right time, and you are never lost. Also, like I said, be gentle with yourself, because think about it. Some of these aspects of us were developed only for our survival. At the end of the day, we are primal individuals, and no matter how far in civilization and growing within technology, we are still creatures, and sometimes they operate in that survival mode. Therefore, there is still that primal survival instinct that is within us that can be developed still and has developed. As for me, I know that I had to fend for myself at a very young age. Some was my doing. Some was the way that I was brought up. But at the same time, regardless, I recognize when were these programs ultimately encrypted in me, is a way to put it. And when you begin to realize when they were programmed within you, you can think back and almost forgive yourself for the things that you didn't know then that allowed you to develop that survival mechanism that you are still using to this day. So although a part of you is no longer needed in this era of your life, when that choice of change comes knocking at the door of your heart, we can make peace with ourselves at why it is okay to have a different response. Because if you automatically try to have a different response, yes, you can try and get it through and have a different outcome, but it's going to be like pulling a wagon with no wheels, because your nervous system might not even be ready for that, because you haven't even made amends with the part of you that ultimately is still living within you, that you just swooped under the rug because you didn't want to face that. No one said that the healing journey was easy, but it's worth it. And the currency of healing that you get from this is immeasurable. And it's to the point where you're like, oh my goodness, why have I been living like this for so long? You're gonna realize also that this healing is available to all of us. Getting our nervous system primed for that change is not just healthy, but so important. So important to the point where you can ensure a softer landing. I'll put it that way. It's like when you take the brownies out of the oven and they're not ready. They're still too gooey in the middle. You took them out because yes, they look like brownies. Yes, they taste like brownies, but they're still not ready. Be the brownie that is ready. I don't know where that analogy came from, but yes. Let me give a real life example. Okay. For example, in my first marriage era, I was used to operate in a fawn type of behavior. A way I can describe that fawning behavior is like people pleasing. I had brought that behavior from a survival mechanism all the way from childhood. It had kept me safe as a child when I would have to regulate my parents' emotions for them. And when I seen that when I did what I was told and looked how I was told to look, no matter how unauthentic it was to me, that was when I seen their love. So that is when I developed this fawning. This behavior became a staple in my life to ensure a placebo type of peace and safety. And I'm sure that you can think about different types of mechanisms that you might use in your life for a placebo type of peace and safety. So fast forward to when I left that marriage, I remember a specific moment when I was unpacking things in that new place I was staying, and I began to get hungry. And know that sometimes hunger can stir up emotions in us, but this was something more. Suddenly I began to cry when I was unpacking my things because I truly could not remember the last time I had even asked myself, what do I want? What did I want to eat for dinner? I had become such a doormat that I couldn't even remember the last time that I had asked myself, what do I want for dinner? What does Jessica want for dinner? What is Jessica like? I had made myself small and put myself in the back burner for so long, I didn't even know myself. Now, I'm not here to put a blame on my ex-husband. After all, he was only living at the level of awareness that he knew. It was that trauma had just attracted trauma in that dynamic, and it takes two to tango. I had to make amends with that when this fawn behavior wound was opened and was revealed to me. I had to make amends with it because, after all, it had helped me to survive a lot of things. I remember as a teenager, still operating in this fawning mechanism, I remember lending my vehicle to a gang member because I was afraid. Years later, one day he really did defend me, so it it played out very, very well, but you get what I'm saying. Your mind will try and convince you why this behavior is okay. And the more that you allow and you feed that side of you that pushes away your authenticity, the more that you're going to be unfulfilled. Because sometimes people don't realize that it's not even money, relationship, things that we are seeking after, it's the feeling. And when you feed the authentic side of you that is living in their purpose, ultimately will give you a return that is immeasurable. I posted a TikTok the other day, and I remember thinking of that saying, some people are so poor that all they have is money. I want you to think about that before I digress too much. When that fawn behavior wound was open and revealed to me, I had two choices, just as you will have two choices to make as well whenever you are on that healing journey with whatever situation may bring up from you. I could have chose to face myself and this survival mechanism and learn myself, or I could have chosen to numb with something or another partner that would be playing the same game, enabling the same type of dynamic. And let me tell you something, beautiful people. I would not be here today creating this vulnerable space for us to grow together had I chosen the numbing route. I said enough is enough. I want to look at myself in the mirror. I want to see what in me created this situation. Believe me, that is easier said than done because there are more things out there in the world that call your name as just another way to numb you away from whatever you need to face. But just know, when life hands you that mirror with that situation, just how Bob Ross says, there are only happy accidents here. Perhaps I'm showing my age. Bob Ross is a painter. Look him up if you need to. Yes, just like Bob Ross says, there's only happy accidents here. You have the paintbrush of life in your hands. And that part, that blob, whatever you think, that part of you that was so messed up, it's going to be turned into a beautiful tree that bears fruit. Guess what? Guess what else? That is only one tree in the painting of your life. When we choose to heal another wound that comes up, you'll have another tree that bears fruit. And maybe this tree will produce a fruit that you can share with others to nourish them. And the cycle of healing goes on and on and on. And you never know. That wound that you heal might be what saves your sibling's life, your child's life. Okay. That's enough of that. I love my imagination and how we can paint pictures for each other. I'm just going to end this episode with a couple of truths. Let's see. No one has the power to make you feel worried or anxious. And life is too short to stay angry. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on Healing Hearts.